Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading Bitcoin with your host, Tone Vase. Once again, I am starting to do this show with co-hosts. I'm going to try and bring you people you may not be familiar with as I reach out to other traders. It's something I'm trying out. We'll see how it works. And for today's show, I am joined by Joe Saz, who is the market analyst for Block TV. How are you doing today, Joe?
Excellent, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. I forgot to double check my audio, but I am all set. All right, guys. So for those that may not be familiar with your work, Joe, go ahead and say a little bit something about yourself and what you do over at Block TV and where people can find your work. Though I will add links to the video description. I also promised that yesterday with Ugly Willy Woo and Van Zen, and I realized I never did that. So that's on my plate right after the show.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, hello everyone. My name is Joe Saz. I'm the analyst for Block TV. A little bit about myself. I really started trading crypto hard in 2017. Um, Obviously, it was a tough time, so I like to say that I was kind of forged in the fires of Bitcoin's market volatility. So that's a bit of the foundation upon which that I learn to use some indicators and to pay attention to market psychology and the external variables that can drive price in the space. And been working with Block TV since November 2018. And yeah, since then we've been creating video content that focuses on cryptocurrency. Obviously, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, so we have a lot to do with Bitcoin, and we observe some of the other top cryptos by market cap, and that varies. Uh, of course, we add whatever external narrative is going on, like the Litecoin halving and how little impact that had on price and stuff like that. So, always looking at the money, seeing where it's coming from, seeing where it's going, and that's my main curiosity in the space.
And your job, besides doing analytics for Block TV, you do pretty much trade full time. That's what you do. You sit at home and you trade.
Yeah, it's a very stressful life, I might add. But yeah, I'm a full-time trader. I mean, that's what I do, and it's pretty much what I've been doing since that boom in 2017. And I'm one of the ones that got lucky. I would say I became more of a skilled analyst after a lot of research and understanding, more in depth what Bitcoin is, and that's kind of the process of me going from being a full-blown blind crypto trader touching any garbage that I saw a money making opportunity on to specializing in specifically Bitcoin. And that's kind of what I do now is I really only trade Bitcoin. I was willing to touch the halving pump for Litecoin, which we all know was completely, anticlimactic. But yeah, I'm a pretty much 24/7 trader, and I'm actually taking like my first vacation from trading since 2017 because this market's been so ridiculous, and it's really hard to say what's going to happen. So I'm focusing on kind of taking that step back, taking a look back at the fundamentals to clear my head a little bit, and just looking forward to coming back in with a fresh head.
Awesome. Yeah. So happy to have you on. And I've been on Block TV's Traders Take several times. Probably been on the show about 5 times, including an in-person one at Consensus. And other than that, you and I have done these live, and they've been pretty cool shows. You guys can check out blocktv.com. It's pretty much a streaming channel with lots of content, including the Traders Take channel. All right, but we're gonna talk about the market, so we're gonna dive right in. Let's start as we usually do with the Bitcoin markets. Here's the monthly chart. The monthly chart is looking very bullish. I mean, there's nothing else I can say about this other than we have the 3 moving averages. This is what Tyler called consensio. And you were a big fan of Tyler Jenks as well. I saw
Yeah.
your heartwarming video that you did for Block TV, just talking about Tyler Jenks after his passing. That was just so unfortunate. Maybe
Yeah.
I should give you a few words to say that on my channel, and then we will go back to screen share and the charts.
Yeah, I'll say Tyler was such a. I mean, there's honestly too many good words that I could say about Tyler that I can't say them all. But one of the nicest, kindest, and one of the most supportive people I've ever met. I mean, he was really complimentary of my work, and that's kind of when I felt like I was onto something. And you know, Tyler and I ended up becoming close friends. And yeah, my video, our little Block TV tribute to him was, you know, kind of my way of saying goodbye to him because of the beautiful impact that he had on my life. And you know, from an analytic perspective, I mean, I learned so much. His support was so important because, as you know, the space is just it's very difficult, very volatile, and that includes from people, you know, from people that hate analysts or people that despise the calls that certain people make. So you know, it was really great working with someone that helped me learn to keep a very clean head on my shoulders, clear head on my shoulders, and you know, Tyler's never going to be forgotten. I can promise you that. He's someone that made a very big impact on my life. But
And
always a cheers to you, Tyler. You know, always in my thoughts.
yeah, and Tyler was a more consistent guest on Block TV than I was. You guys had him on many times, and I know you and him communicated lots outside of the, you know, recorded space.
Yeah, yeah, that was probably the best thing, and that's one thing that I love about this space is, you know, I'm sure everyone that's watching and will watch knows that they're in this space because they're passionate about it, and it's like the dream is to, you know, get a job and to find a living here and to make your way through this space while, you know, again pursuing your passion, and that's something I'm so fortunate to have. And Tyler was a recurring guest, and you know, obviously our talks outside of Block TV were never we never really cared about the price as much as we cared about the implications of Bitcoin on a political spectrum, economic spectrum, all these other areas that people forget to analyze. And so that was something that I always loved doing, exploring. And you know, those are the areas that, from an educational perspective, matter most. You know, so price is very important to dissect so that we can, you know, our job as analysts is to help people extend their buying power as far as it possibly can go. You know, so if we're saying red flag, you know, Bitcoin price could tank, you know, and people heed that warning, then they could be buying in at a much better value, and we're making all these Bitcoin maximalists and investors, you know, we're sharpening their blades for the future, you know, in these next run-ups. And I'm talking not this parabolic run-up that's made a lot of people happy, but I'm talking about the run-ups that we have in the future. You know, Tyler was predicting $1 to $10 million Bitcoin, and those are the days that are going to be, you know, we're going to be looking back on this like it's nothing. But you know, talking about the political implications of a $1 million Bitcoin and economic implication of hyper Bitcoinization at that point, that was a very fun speculative topic, and always enjoyed speaking with Tyler about that.
Yeah, no, thanks for your kind words. And let's go ahead and move on to the charts. I'm gonna go to the monthly, and like I was saying, according to Tyler's Consensio, there's nothing you can say about the Bitcoin chart on a monthly scale other than it is fully bullish, straight on 100%. You have the three moving averages that I like to look on large time frames are 7, 30, and 50. They're all rising. They're all above each other. The price is above them. And we're about to get the second highest monthly close in Bitcoin's history, assuming, of course, we close at the current price. I know there's still more than half a month to go, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So if we close at current levels, this is the second highest monthly close Bitcoin has ever had. And according to my favorite trading indicator, the sequential, it's not my most important thing in my trading. It's candlesticks and chart patterns. But as far as an indicator goes, it is my most important indicator. We're only on a 6 of 9. Though, however, as of today, I think I'm going to stop looking at on a monthly scale. I think I'm going to be switching to Heikin-Ashi candles. Because I looked at this the other day. I'm actually going to switch I wish I can make, wait a minute. I wonder if I can make this candle. Oh, I can make them manually hollow. Beautiful. And I can do this, and I can, this is mostly for the colorblind people. It helps them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do this. And now we have our Heikin-Ashi candles that are hollow. And looking at it on the Heikin-Ashi scale, I like it so much more because the sequential is just working beautifully on this scale. There is the last top takes place with a combo 13. The last bottom in the last bear market takes place on a 9 buy, more or less, right in the middle of this mess. Another 9 slows it down. Another 9, we break out on a beautiful 2 above a green 1 above the 9 for more upside. It kind of ignores the first 2 levels of 13s, but tops on a combo 13 and 9 together, bottoms on a 9, and now we are on a 5 of 9 using Heikin-Ashi. So I think I'm going to stick to Heikin-Ashi for the monthly going forward, and it looks really, really bullish. I'll just need to remember that I am using Heikin-Ashi on this. So the long-term perspective right now, now from a fundamental perspective, I'm starting to flip bullish from a fundamental perspective. From a technical perspective on a monthly level, we've been bullish for quite a while according to my favorite metric, the sequential. Would I have taken the trade? Not really. But this is also why I'm a hodler. So I am enjoying the run-up in prices. What are your thoughts on the large, long-term scale of Bitcoin? And might as well, this is probably a good time to talk about the halving, which is going to come around May of next year. So what do you think about the big picture, Joe?
Yeah. So it's the first thing that I like to do when I look at big pictures is I like to look at the most local play out, right? So the thing that I see on your 9 sell, this most recent, 9 buy in looks like it was late 2018. It looks like we have this 9 buy, a big candle there, and then we start to decrease in price action. We don't have volume here, but we have a decrease in price action leading into what was a very serious uptrend. And so what I'm looking at right now, and keep in mind, I agree with you. Fundamentally speaking, we have to take a step back from whatever external narrative is going on and look at the fundamentals. And it is looking very bullish. I mean, the moving averages are trending up. The 50, or this is in this case, the 7 monthly moving average has taken a very steep turn to the upside. And so part of me is wondering how we're going to react when we meet with that, because typically in Bitcoin, I know that when we snap away from the short-term moving average, we have a tendency to snap back to it at some point, and it's usually violent. So I'm a little curious that after that 9 buy, we had a little bit of a reduction in price action, a reduction in volume, and now we're starting to build volume into these big price swings. And now we're sitting on this monthly 5. And the 4 and the 5 are looking very similar to how the 3 looks with the 9. So looking at this local scenario, I see what could potentially be some sort of reversal setup. And so that's, I'm trying to just poise the bearish perspective if there is something to look at there, because, obviously there could be a bearish bias with external variables. But fundamentally speaking, I just see volume is increasing into this month, and the price is looking bullish. Like you said, we're nearing on a monthly, we're nearing all-time highs. So yeah, I mean, it looks like we're supported by the short-term moving average. Definitely broke through the intermediate term and are supported by it. Broke through the setup trend line, the resistance area over there. I can't tell where that is, but it's probably around 11K or so.
The setup trend resistance, you mean?
Yeah, is that like 11K or so? I can't
10,
see.
10K.
Yeah, so I mean, breaking through that's pretty big. I'm kind of excited. I still think that we're looking at volatile times ahead. I don't think that this is going to be put to rest anytime soon. And with that being said, we've been particularly volatile to the upside, and I'm really concerned about what can potentially happen on our way back down. Right now it looks like we have support in the 8,500 range on the monthly, according to the moving average, trajectory coming out. So I think that all bearish bias aside, yeah, things are looking bullish, and we've broken that downward trend line. We've settled after breaking down from the descending triangle in November 2018. So it's very possible that we could just be making our way up out of a bear market, and it might be time for everyone to just keep accumulating and stop trading. I think that that's very much on the table.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And since this is the Brave New Coin Liquid Index, I'm a little concerned at the low bullish volume compared to the bearish volume going down. And this is an index. So this is an aggregate of volume across many exchanges. So this isn't just like randomly cherry picking an exchange that may or may not currently be in favor.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I really didn't expect us to break this upwards trending line, because the prior two lines that supported the prior bull runs were never broken to the upside. And not breaking this line to the upside didn't mean that it was going to be a bad thing. This line is still pretty damn steep. I mean, by the end of 2022, this line is at $85,000 per Bitcoin, right? So this line is not like, it's not like this line is not bad. It's still a pretty steep line. But I thought that we would have a challenge breaking above that line, but we broke above it a few months ago and been staying up there.
Yeah, we're fighting it. And one thing that, tribute to Tyler, when he and I would talk about this particular setup, we would call it fanning, right? Where we have a steep, a steep ascent on the first trend line on the left of the screen. We have less steep of an angle and less steep of an angle on the third one. And fanning out is something that's kind of bearish. So, that's just something to add to the mix. Bitcoin is such a volatile asset. It's so hard to predict. And especially the past, let's say a few months, April 2nd was the break from 4,300, which was like a very difficult overhead resistance area. So since that break, and this whole fanning out area, this steep move to the upside, it's very possible that with this pattern, we could start to get more bearish if we break that line. I'm not going to hesitate with Bitcoin. You can't be steadfast in your beliefs in Bitcoin. You have to be ready to move in an instant, because Bitcoin is that volatile that in a 15-minute candle, it could be telling you one thing, and then an hour later, a 15-minute candle can pump you right back into a very bullish picture or a very bearish outlook. So that being said, yeah, it looks like onto the weekly, we're grinding along that 50 MA. Is that the 50 or is that a 7?
So that is still the 7. So the orange line is the 7 and the purple line is the 50 MA. So this is the 7 MA on the weekly chart. And right now, to me, the weekly chart is neutral. I am waiting for a green 2 going above a green 1. The last time this happened, well, the last 2 times it happened, it was actually very, very clean. It was, a green 2 breaking above a green 1, breaking above the 9. And the time before was the same thing. It was a green 3 above the green 2, just above the 9. We didn't make it to yet another 9. We ended up price flipping, but we do have a consolidation here at around 12,000. So if we are breaking 12,000 next week, I become pretty damn bullish, because at this point, I don't have the other set of Fibonacci's from the, actually, I can just do this. I didn't mean to do that. But we still have, the weekend to go, so I'll put them. But if I move this Fibonacci up there, this is that 62%. It's just flipped over. I have them going backwards, right? So this is the 60. This is the 38% down. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's correct. This is the 38% from the downside. So if we can get back above that, like, I become pretty bullish at this point. I don't really, yeah, I mean, like, I've been bullish since we broke this $11,000 area, but that's more of the daily chart area. As far as the weekly goes, officially I'm neutral, but I'm leaning bullish here, and I just need a green 2 on a weekly beating a green 1, and then that could set us up for more upside in line with the monthly for up to 4 more months. Yeah. And that probably gets right into my October 5th date of the Pi cycle.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noticed on the weekly is particularly our fight against the short-term moving average. We're once we broke above it, and we ground above it through it in early 2019, broke above it, looks about in February, and then have been supported by it. And like I was talking about earlier, Bitcoin tends to snap back when it has a heavy break away from a 50 or from the short-term moving average. It usually snaps back. In this case, from that 9 cell, we grinded sideways into it, supported by it again, broke violently to the upside, 9 cell into it, supported by the 7 again, and now we're grinding alongside it. We broke beneath it on that red 2 earlier, late July, and now it seems like we're kind of sitting on a quasi-inverted hammer, resting atop the short-term moving average, and that would actually start to scare. It adds a tiny bit to my bearishness, but I would be willing to completely eradicate any sort of bearish fear once we broke above that 12,000 area and sustain it. I think that it's time for us to get rid of our bearish inhibitions if that's the case. If the market is fundamentally telling us what's going on here, and that is we have steep upside action. We were repetitively supported by that short-term moving average until recently. It's as long as we break and keep above, and this short 2 weeks ago, that maybe 3-week period of time where we were wrestling with that short-term moving average, as long as we can break away from that again, I'm going to be very bullish. That's looking really bullish if we can keep our head above that water, the 7 MA.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was just thinking about all that. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And hey, going back to my, I did put this in kind of backwards. So the Fibonacci is supposed to be this way, left to right. And that means this is they're symmetric, right? So 38.2 and 61.8, they're symmetric. This is the line. This is the line that the moment we can close above this line on a weekly scale, I will expect new all-time highs. Yeah. I mean, that's been what I've been saying, and it's the same thing for gold. Gold is no different, and we're probably going to talk about gold in a little bit. Yeah. But let's finish up on Bitcoin and go to. I gotta put this the way it was, otherwise I'm gonna forget what I was doing before.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it is undeniable though. We're looking super bullish, and I've been I've been calling myself a bit of a bear in denial, and I'm getting to the point where I'm really willing to let it go, especially considering how we're acting. Now, this is where things get a little different. All right, so I see you're using the 50 MA, and this is what I've been paying a lot of attention to. Our break below it was a candle, that red 6 that broke us beneath it. I think that was around a 13% move to the downside. So when we broke down violently past the 50 MA, it's been a very interesting battle. I was expecting, especially due to the wider space reacting to the same instance where we broke beneath the 50 MA and had a very violent breakdown, even into the 200 MA for assets like Litecoin and Ethereum. It's been really interesting to me that Bitcoin hasn't really taken or been as dramatic in response to the 50 MA and breaking beneath it. That's what's kind of making me very curious about where we're going on the daily. Obviously, that 9 buy was perfect, and moving all the way up through the setup trend line on the resistance zone, also being rejected by it on the green 3, closing below the 50 MA. I mean, it was looking kind of bearish, but we just broke through it. So, again, that was a great place to potentially enter a short, but it looks like the bullishness in the space is really going to keep carrying us into, potentially all-time highs in coming weeks. I mean, I really do think that that's on the table. It's just looking good. We're now sitting on a 9 cell. A pullback to the 50 MA wouldn't be a red flag in my eyes, especially if we're supported by it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that was a beautiful buying opportunity off the 9 buy. Not a perfect 9 sell over here, but definitely good enough to trade off of. I'm taking this 9 kind of seriously, but considering by how much we broke the setup trend line, this is how these setup trend lines become so critical. For those that studied the sequential, and I know you did, Joe, for those that studied the sequential, the break of setup trend greatly increases the probability that this 9 is the beginning of a bull trend and not the end of it. Now, also notice when the 9 buy came up, how close the setup trend line was to it. It was, I'll use percentages. When this 9 completed, the setup trend line was 11% away. Now let's flip that. Let's say the 9 completes here. The next setup trend line is 17% away, even after the completion of the candle, right? If we go high to high, if we go take the top, it's even more. So in order for us to now break the setup trend line to the downside is going to be very, very challenging. Not to mention this 128-day moving average is rising pretty damn fast, and this moving average has been pretty critical in the past. So
Absolutely.
This is the type of 9 I am looking for, only a 1-2-4 candle correction, followed by the countdown phase to the upside after this 9. So to me, while this is definitely a chance to take your profit on a daily scale, remember your weekly could turn bullish next week with more upside. And that's definitely after the 1-2-4 candle correction that could come. Your monthly is still bullish. And while right now I would not necessarily be long in a swing trade, and that's what the daily chart is. The daily chart is the swing traders, golden ratio, the Goldilocks zone.
Bread and butter, yeah.
Looking for, right? So right now, and off of this 9 at the low, I was only looking for a 1-4 candle correction and a reversal from setup trend. Once that didn't happen, that's where I became a bull. Now it's the opposite. Now I'm looking for a 1-4 candle correction to the downside, treating the 50 MA as support, bouncing off of it, and I become a bull off the bounce and a bigger bull at the break of 12,000.
Yeah, 100%. I agree because on the 9 sell, as long as we hold this 9 candle where it's not a fully engulfing bearish candle, I notice a lot of the time if you have a 9 sell or a 9 buy, for example, and then it just completely sweeps the price, then you have a very different type of setup. And so right now we're sitting on a pretty decent looking price action activity for the day. I think that 9 sell, I agree. I'm looking more for the 1-4 candle pullback in this case. And I was also in the 9 buy opportunity, but we broke. And so again, that just goes to as a testament that Bitcoin is more volatile than you can possibly think. And now things are looking like, we're supported by the 50 MA, which historically has been very strong support, especially in this run up. So that little fight with it could have just been a fight that Bitcoin won without having to suffer the intense pullback that the wider crypto market has. And that, has a lot to do with Bitcoin's growing dominance in the space and, the speculation behind that. If people are dumping alts for Bitcoin because this run has been so amazing, well, yeah, there's no surprise that this could be a 1-4 candle pullback and then a move right into the moonish territory. I'm ready for that.
So we do have a good question in the live chat. I'm going to ask because otherwise I might forget. What is your probability that we have a new all-time high this year on a percentage basis?
To me, I would say a new all-time high this year. I'm going to give it I
have a number in my head, but I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, I'm trying to just run through everything quickly. I would say based on the facts that we have presented to us right now, I would say we're looking at probably a 70% chance, kind of a 70-30 scenario, just based on the fact that this run-up has been psyching out the bears along the way. I mean, one of the things that's really caught me off guard is how many times the bears have been psyched out during this run-up. There's been multiple opportunities where the bears could have really taken a hold of the market, and bulls have come in with ferocious buying power and just killed the bearish sentiment. So considering that fact and us breaking into this a full 9 count out of a 9 buy, I think it's very possible that we continue moving up. And I think sellers are going to give up on fighting the bears or fighting the bulls. I mean, it's just going to get to a point where no seller's going to, in the right mind, is going to think selling is the best option right now. because we're breaking all these resistances. The run up to 14,000 killed every resistance zone along the way, and in a matter of days, I think 6,000 took us something like 3 days to break. 4,300 was really a one-day event, in my opinion, because we were fighting in a little bit of a ascending triangle. 4,300 was overhead resistance, but the way we broke it was so decisive that I'm kind of considering that a different level of resistance breaking. So I think we're getting near the point where sellers are going to be out of their mind to sell. And especially in that 12.5, if we hold it, which has been difficult. We've had steep rejections at 12.5 and then again at around 12.2. And then we've been hovering in the high 11s for a little while. Other than this 9 sell on the daily, we were very comfortably sitting in super bullish territory. So in my eyes, it's looking great. And that this 1 to 4 candle pullback, I mean, as great as an opportunity as it might be to short the market, I'm doing it very lightly and very cautiously, because again, we could just be, the fact that so many times during this run, the bears have been psyched out. I'm ready to be psyched out again. And if that's the case, and that trend alone, the bearish psych out, let's call it, trend continues, then we're just going to keep moving. And I give all-time highs, breaking 20K, something like a 70% chance over the next 2 months. And that's
yeah, your percentage is still way higher than mine. I was gonna go 70-30 the other way, even a little lower, like closer to 25. I still think it's gonna be hard to break all-time highs. I will say this: if we break all-time highs, I'm expecting a ridiculous amount of FOMO. Again, I'm a buyer of the breakout, and a lot of people don't understand the concept of buying the breakout. Buying the breakout is amazing, just like selling the breakdown is amazing. Now, Ugly Old Goat and I debate this all the time. He likes to go the other way. He likes to sell the 2-week high and buy the 2-week low. I don't have a time period on this, but the more critical of a swing high we break to the upside, the more bullish I get. The more when gold breaks 1900, I'm going to be the biggest gold bull ever. Now, some people will say you're late to the party, and I will say, well, not exactly, because that's when the bull market really takes off. I was going to save that for the Bitcoin chart. So here is the difference, right? Maybe we'll briefly mention it now because we're on a big factor. And this is what Tyler understood and why Tyler and I got along so well. And a lot of noobs in trading, which is most of the crypto space, just don't get it. The reason why Tyler and myself are always cautious and more bearish than bullish on an asset like gold or Bitcoin is because it's nowhere near new all-time highs. When an asset is closer to, decade lows than it is to all-time highs, you're gambling by going all in. And this is also why I have been the biggest bull of the stock market for the last 6 years or more. And all it's done is go up, up, up. And everyone keeps trying to anticipate a monster crash, and they continue to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I need assets at all-time highs. I mean, it's great for ratings and views and whatever to catch the perfect bottom. But that's not how you stay in the trading game. It's really not, because one of these days you're going to catch it wrong and you're going to get wiped out. And once you're wiped out, you don't trade again. Okay. But when assets break all-time highs or they break critical swing lows, they just accelerate. And that's where the easy money is made, not at guessing tops, at guessing bottoms.
See, so back to your gold chart, and as a trader, there's a couple things that come to mind, right? Now, the first thing I want to point out on the gold chart is back into 2016. If you draw a trend line up hitting those bottoms, and then obviously you have the 32 fib, which is to me the top of an ascending triangle. So to me right now, this breakout in gold is merely an ascending triangle breakout. I still think there is room for gold to come back to a lower point. I'm not going to assume the worst. I'm not really like a doomsday trader, but I do agree that buying and selling breakouts are great ways to make money. And the thing that people might get caught up on is, well, you might be late to the party, right? But if you're catching a pretty clear as day breakout or breakdown, all you need to do is leverage yourself safely, and then you can recuperate whatever of that asset you feel like you've missed. Let's give an example. Say you missed the 3K bottom in Bitcoin, and we're in an undeniable bull market, and let's say 20K is your target where you're expecting violent breakout to the upside. Well, if you throw in a leverage trade and it's that certain, and obviously there's no such thing as that certain, but there are instances where the market lines up perfectly and the psychology in the space lines up perfectly with the technicals. The other variables, for example, in Bitcoin, let's say the development of the Lightning Network going from a point where a year ago I was running a node and a Lightning node and had a Lightning wallet synced to everything, versus now where you can have an app on your cell phone and transact through the Lightning Network. I mean, we have some serious fundamental developments in the space that are making Bitcoin and hyper Bitcoinization much more of a reality. So that breakout, with some leverage, on a leveraged long, can recuperate some of the Bitcoin that you might not have bought at 3,000 if you're beating yourself over the head. So, there's always another trade is the point I'm trying to make. And with Bitcoin, and as volatile as it is, that trade is something that you can, you profit heavily from. But with gold, again, this to me for now is a breakout from an ascending triangle. And we just started to get a little more violent on that end with a break from 1375 range to 1500, which is beautiful. But I still want to see how gold continues to react to this move, because typically assets like this don't make those violent swings. So I want to wait and see how this ends. Is this a breakout that's going to cap out at 1500, and then we return to another maybe descending triangle formation, or we just break down even harder than that? I personally think a lot of the gold speculation in price has to do with uncertainty in global markets. So I'm if that external variable changes, that external narrative starts to shift, and people are more comfortable in stocks and other things. An example might be, I guess this is more specific to traders, but I look at the Fed rate cut as an opportunity for families, young families, and all kinds of individuals to buy things that they would need to pay interest on. So I think gold is kind of the escape plan for any sort of negative market activity in stocks. But the second we start having certainty back in the stock market, I don't think gold is going to be the thing that people start running to. I think that we're going to have a big move. Like you were saying, you're super bullish on the S&P 500. Well, there's every reason to be. And if that momentum continues, the same way that we have alts moving into Bitcoin to probably fuel a lot of this parabolic run up, we're probably going to see the same thing where we have an exit of an asset, a very safe, stable asset like gold, and a move into assets that people can trade like stocks.
Yeah, no, that was very well said, Joe. And I'm just going to comment on gold real quick, and then we'll go back to the 4-hour Bitcoin chart and close out Bitcoin. I became a gold bull as a trade the moment it broke the 38% Fibonacci. We've talked about this for years on my channel, where I needed it to break the 38% Fibonacci. Once we did, I became a bull. Now, from that point on, from a TA perspective, fundamentally, again, I'm starting to change my mind, and it's mostly because of this, global trade war and currency devaluation, and the Chinese just devalued their currency. And you and I were speaking offline just the other day, where the question came up. Actually, you didn't bring it up, but somebody else did, about the Russian ruble. And the question was, hey, how come we can pull up the chart of the Russian ruble? Again, I know I'm going off script a little bit because people still want to hear Bitcoin. But real quick, I want to pull up, and before I forget, here's that Tilray chart. This was my short of the decade, shorting on the 9 daily because there was a 9 weekly and monthly. And look what happened today. Finally hit another 9. It consolidated off this 9. Finally made another low. beautiful 9 today, and let's see if this thing has a little bit of a bounce. But if I go to the Russian ruble, USD versus RUB, there it is, right? So if we look at the chart of the Russian ruble, and this is the daily chart, let's go to the weekly chart. Here's the weekly chart of the Russian ruble, and it has been a total disaster in the last decade. It's not as bad as it was, in 2016, but it still continues to devalue against the dollar. It has not had a great year. And the question was, well, why is it doing that? Russia doesn't have any international debt. It has a bunch of natural resources. It has apparently a lot of gold. And my answer was simple, because no one trusts the Russian currency. Because it doesn't matter how much gold you have or how much debt you have, if the other countries around the world, if the human population around the world, including the population of your own country, doesn't necessarily trust the people printing the physical cash, right? Because there's not enough transparency to trust it. Now, as much as gloom and doomers hate the dollar, most of whom are actually Americans that hate the dollar, the international community loves the dollar because it's probably the most transparent currency the world has ever had, right? And it's the transparency that gives the dollar global trust.
Yeah.
And this is why you can't print it into inflation, no matter how much Trump hates the rising value of the dollar. If the Trump really wants the dollar to depreciate in value, they have to be less transparent about how the dollars are being created. Like it's a bit of a catch-22. But gold does become the beneficiary of this. And my last point on gold is that in order for me to believe in gold going up, it has to rise across all currencies. And more importantly, it has to rise with the rising value of the dollar because it's priced in dollars. And that means it's crushing it against other global currencies. And that's what has been happening lately, which makes me more bullish on gold. And I'm now, and I have now taken my sub $1,000 in gold price pretty much off the table in a similar way that I'm taking sub $3,000 Bitcoin off the table, because we are starting to rally past critical points. But Bitcoin is not going to get you major run-ups until after it goes to new all-time high, because that's when the majority of the people start to either FOMO in or get scared and keep waiting and waiting and waiting.
Well, in addition to that, we're going to have, and when you say FOMO in my head, I'm hearing, a 2017 type FOMO in. What I keep bringing up about the 2017 FOMO is ignoring all other factors, and of course, ignoring the fact that Coinbase is a huge enemy to, Bitcoin. The fact is that in the month of December 2017 alone, we had an increase of users on Coinbase from 5.5 million accounts to 12.5 million accounts. So that was a $7 million increase, 7 million account created in the month of December alone, and that I think accommodates for a lot of the steep parabolic upside action in Bitcoin 2017. Now, the one thing I would say is we ended a bear market into another parabolic run-up, and the question to me is, are we double bubbling here? We have undeniably broken the parabolic uptrend. The question is, do we go sideways from here, or do we go down? I mean, obviously, which way do we go from breaking the parabolic run-up? To me, according to what I see, and again, keeping into account, if we look at the daily and we run back, we see sometime in, maybe it was May to June range, there was a near completion of a Head and Shoulders, and obviously that was poising, that we were poised for a breakdown, but that was a serious bearish fake out. We ended up pumping right through it into a direct run to that 14K territory. So, anything's on the table here, including, I am a little skeptical about a pullback all the way down to 3,000, but, we have seen parabolic uptrends break in Bitcoin, and they are, they're pretty drawn out. I like to rip the Band-Aid off. But in this price, in Bitcoin, we have something different than we have, I think, in other assets. We have hope, and this hope is associated with, again, a lot of those political and economic implications of what Bitcoin can do as a service to the world, right? And the people of it. They often reference Bitcoin as the money of the people. So behind Bitcoin, we have a HODL movement, which is pretty much like the first that I know of in history. I don't think there's really been any asset that people have been willing to hold on to for dear life. And I don't think there's been any asset that's had the promise that of balance that it can bring to our global economic and political ecosystem, or even more isolated ecosystems, like particularly in the United States. And that extends to your talk of the Russian currency, the ruble. Well, yeah, that's an isolated ecosystem right there. We don't know about the printing. We don't have a RussiaDebtClock.org going on, where they're displaying how much money they're printing and whatever else they're doing. So, these isolated ecosystems are something that are very interesting to me, and how the market responds to them. And so in this particular case, I think Bitcoin is an isolated ecosystem. One thing that I think it's important to pay attention to is we're still talking about, look at Google Trends 2017, Google Trends now. This run up is very...
No, and that we brought that up on our show. I think Socrates was on that show and with Tyler, where if you go to Google Trends and you type in the words "buy Bitcoin," it's really an amazing chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this is such an amazing resource. So we should... I think you can hit it all time or something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna zoom out. 5 years is good enough.
Yeah.
Right. So here is the Google search for buy Bitcoin. We are nowhere to be seen compared to the 2017 bull market. Now, I can make the case that this is bullish, and I can also make the case that this is bearish, right? Because this tells me that no new people are coming in. So what the hell is causing the run-up, right? It's just internal money. It's also noticeable in our own personal trends. I mean, you weren't really around in 2016, but the amount of followers that my Twitter got and my YouTube got was unprecedented. I was picking up 1,000 Twitter followers a month. I was picking up, thousands of subscribers. 1,000 Twitter followers a day. I was picking up like hundreds, if not thousands, of subscribers to my YouTube per day. None of that is happening, right? So you can look at it as a positive, saying, hey, there is no FOMO. Just wait till the price goes a little bit higher, and then everyone FOMOs in. But you can also say, this is, I don't like using the word manipulation, but you can also say, hey, this is people with Bitcoin. It's people inside the community that are messing around with the price, moving it up only to drop it back down and crush people. So there's definitely reasons on both sides. Though I didn't expect the numbers to be this low. I mean, that's just weird.
They're pathetic. These are terrible numbers relative to the price action we have. And I would say, if you're able to pull it up, coinmarketcap.com, I think this is an important thing to take note of. Now, we're talking about where's the money coming from, and that's something that's always a big question to me, right? We have an obvious Google trend in 2017 that correlates to what I mentioned about the Coinbase user account increase from, in the month of December alone, 7 million new users. Now, that's people buying hundreds of dollars, tens of dollars, thousands of dollars, and even 5-6 figure dollar amounts, right? And that is very consistent with a parabolic run-up. That we know where the money was coming from in that run. This one is very speculative, on the other hand. This one is, well, is this could this be institutional investors? Could this be Bitcoin? Can it be on the radar as a new parking lot for people that are worried about global trade scenarios? What is the speculation that's driving the price into what is really a steep parabolic run up? I mean, we broke from 3,000 to 14,000 in a matter of months, coming out of a bear market, which is, I think, a little bit of a red flag in my opinion. Now, the Google Trends show us that there isn't a widespread interest or even near the widespread interest that we had in 2017. So, there's all kinds of speculation there. I do throw out the word manipulation a little bit because I feel like there are some interesting correlations between assets that are driving the price and things that are going on externally. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. let's see let's see what happens. Curious about this shitcoin search. I hope it's at an all-time high. Looks
No,
like there's
you
not
know
much.
what? I have to. I may have. It's disproportionate.
Yeah,
I
we,
need.
we
I may
can't
have.
log it.
I may have to drop this one.
There's still I can't imagine there's some interest. Let's see, peak
Look,
and
look. Congress mentions the word shitcoins, and it still doesn't register as high as in 2017.
mhm. Yeah, I gotta say the current environment that we're in right now it was starting to feel toward the end of the before we broke down from the descending triangle, there was so much of a signature of traders trading, a very active trading type book exchange volume. It really looked like it was traders trading. It got to the point where there was really no new money coming in. If anything, most of the money was sitting out. A big part of that speculation was, well, a lot of people, 2018 was very, very rough on a lot of traders. So in order to offset a lot of your stock gains, you had to sell your crypto before or Bitcoin before 2018 so that you could report losses, right? So part of my curiosity is, well, how much of that was sold because we didn't really have the as steep of a decline in the month of December, right? We broke down to 3K in about November. November 14th was the breakdown from 6,000, 5,800 all the way down over the next few days into Thanksgiving, which had a serious dump. So there was a lot of downside activity. So I'm a little curious about, could this have been front running, people trying to sell as low as they can and report as much losses as they can against stock market gains because of course the stock market started to rebound and things were looking great in the stock market. Anyone that caught that tiny little bear market, might have sold high and even shorted the market short term. Great opportunities there. So I think that a big part of that question, where the money is coming from, I think some of it is from that money that was sitting out end of year 2018 to sell to report losses. I think that's probably the most organic speculation I have about why Google Trends are so terribly low and price action is so violently up to the upside. But here's where things get interesting. The seventh cryptocurrency by market cap is US dollar tether. Its reported daily volume it tends to be close to what Bitcoin's volume is. And this is something that I think needs to break in order for me to be very confident that we're talking about an organic market space. I just don't see too much need for Tether when you have, especially in the United States, multiple exchanges that are, of course, AML KYC compliant that have fiat pairs. So, I'm a little curious about this particular action. Historically, I don't know if we can run back through, a history of when Tether started to trade like this and pair in 24-hour volume with Bitcoin. But I think that that's something that's interesting to take note of, to bring into the picture where is the money coming from, because there's obviously the New York Attorney General believes in something there, going on with Tether. So that's a number that I find very compelling. Of course, it's I think by market cap, Bitcoin US dollar Tether is highest on maybe OKX and Binance, maybe a few other exchanges. I know a lot of exchanges have commented that the US dollar inflows are sufficient to claim that this is a very organic run up, but I still think that there's something about this pair, the US dollar tether volume on a 24-hour basis, which has been consistent with Bitcoin, and this has been going on for a number of months now. And so this is the only thing that I have to hold on to my bearish bias, because in theory, if manipulation is on the table and Tether is the mechanism through which people are doing that, then anything can happen to the downside. You know, if you're going to manipulate the market to the upside, it's to sell. So, you know, excluding all the, you know, court documents and that evidence, I just think I really want to see us break that tether pair before I'm really confident that we're looking at an organic bull run similar to what we had in 2017.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with you. And I will add that in the current bull run of Bitcoin, there has been a big exodus of the shitcoins into Bitcoin. So that is something to consider that's been helping this run up. But the exodus of shitcoins into Bitcoin is not what a new bull market makes, right? Like this is, and this is the part that's hard to explain to people. The stock market has been a bull market for over 10 years. There are people that have been in denial for 10 years, right? Like that the stock market is in a bull market. They keep making up excuses about how it's manipulated, and that's why it's rising, and not the fact that the economy is doing okay and these companies are doing just fine. So people have ignored the bull market and the stock market for 10 years. I am being cautious on this bull market in Bitcoin for now, maybe going on 6 months. And since the bull market has only been around about 6 months, it kind of started going up earlier in the year, pretty much since April, actually.
April 2nd to me is, right, it marks the bull run, in my opinion.
Right. So it's still very, very early. And because Bitcoin is so illiquid, my best explanation as to why the price of Bitcoin went up so much is because people realize that shitcoins are shitcoins. And they've been exiting the shitcoins into Bitcoin. And that's why you don't have anything in the Google Trends that's telling you that mass adoption is coming. I'm sorry, guys, mass adoption is not coming. And when the last shitcoiner gets out of their bags and into Bitcoin, if we don't break all-time highs and Bitcoin is not going into FOMO mode, there will be nobody left to buy internally. And if new users don't come, that's going to be another 80% correction. So that can still come. We just don't know from where. But this time around, people will not sell their Bitcoin back into shitcoins. Yeah. You're just going to be exiting Bitcoin, hopefully not into Tether, that will get confiscated by the New York Attorney General. And then that thing will go to zero, right? It becomes this cat and mouse game of where to move your money.
Yeah, absolutely. And this chart is a perfect explanation of what's going to happen. Like, all right, so we see the exodus of shitcoinery into Bitcoin, right? And that's there was really only one purpose to buying shitcoins as a trader. Once I became particularly a Bitcoin maximalist, it was to, you know, try to catch some nasty pumps and dumps, because we have that in the altcoin space. We can have, you know, it's oftentimes the funniest thing about it is sometimes you'll get a 100, 300% move to the upside on a crypto that isn't even in the top 100. You know, it's always like some random, you know, altcoin that came from nowhere. So, you know, the fact that people might have been trying to make more Bitcoin on altcoin pumps absolutely is a strategy, not one that I recommend. But we have an exodus of altcoins into Bitcoin, and that goes to show you that if Bitcoin right now, its price action is a house of cards, then we're looking at a double bubble. And I think at that point, we're talking about a serious elimination of many, like I'm talking maybe even thousands of altcoins, where developers have no funding, they abandon their projects, the founders with their pre-mines sell and dump on their bag holders, maybe even while pumping some bullish kind of news to try to keep people holding. So I think that anything's on the table, but if this is a run-up that does happen to end, there's some sort of implosion, explosion associated with any number of the things that could that speculators say have a part in this run-up. I think it's going to be a double. Excuse me. It's going to be a double-edged sword, because if Bitcoin crashes, it's going to be sad, right? We're all very happy about this massive increase in price. But on the other hand, if Bitcoin and altcoin dominance is at you know a very low point, And we're talking Bitcoin dominance nearing 70%. Well, if Bitcoin starts going down, I don't think people are going to want to park their money in anything other than a risk-averse asset like the US dollar.
Right. No, and I agree with you on that. And if there is a continued exodus out of shitcoins because of Bitcoin's illiquid market, that could be enough to drive Bitcoin to new all-time highs without the need for new people coming in. But eventually you will need new people coming in because internal money is eventually going to run out, right? Like there's not going to be enough sustained demand. You will need institutional investors to actually come in for real. And you'll need who may or may not be coming in. I don't know. I'm not in. I don't know I don't have access to that information. There may or may not be institutional investors coming in.
But this is something that I want to comment on because you have a comment in the chat here from SD S.D. What's up, man? It says Tether is bought by wealthy Chinese to buy Bitcoin and get their wealth out of China. Also, a lot of other billionaires are going into Bitcoin to prep for upcoming uncertainty.
Well, no. Here's the thing, right? SD, unless you can drop names of a billionaire on the record, that's a bullshit comment. You have absolutely no proof and no idea that there are billionaires buying Bitcoin, okay? You're welcome to make their billionaires' financials public, but I'm tired of these comments of people saying how billionaires are coming in. Really? Prove it.
Yeah. I mean, the billionaires that I know of are bashing Bitcoin. I mean, we got George Soros, who, Warren Buffett, who is probably hates Bitcoin and cryptocurrency even more as a result of this whole scam that Justin Sun tried to pull with the kidney stones and all that mumbo jumbo. But to hit SD's comment on a different angle, the question would be to that. My question to you would be: do you actually believe that millionaires and billionaires would be willing to invest in Tether and while it's being investigated by the New York Attorney General? I mean, we definitely have something there. The New York Attorney General is biting hard, and they refuse to let go. Their response to Tether's request to dismiss the case was very aggressive, and I was impressed with the documentation that they presented. So on top of what you said, Tone, I still also think that I don't think that we're at a point of risk where Tether is the route through that millionaires and billionaires would be willing to take to enter the space through AML KYC non-compliant.
Maybe in China, not in the US. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In the US, there's just no way. I mean, if John Carlo at Tether is saying, hey guys, speaking with millionaires and billionaires, and he's saying, hey, I'll take your money, we'll mark it down on paper, I'll issue you your Tether, and I'll put that documentation in a warehouse lined with explosives, so that the second the New York Attorney General starts getting closer and closer to this requesting this kind of transparency, we'll light the place on fire, and we'll just take the heat. Well, that's one route, and that's a really kind of a very weird speculative area, right? So I think that this that particular instance, I'm going to have to agree with you, Tone. Until we have some sort of public knowledge of this, I'm not going to rest any of my weight on that being a driver in Tether's pairing with Bitcoin's 24-hour volume.
Yeah, no, we do have a good comment regarding the billionaire issue. If socialists win the 2020 election, then you can see billionaires parking their money in Bitcoin to move it offshore. Yeah, I can see that. Unfortunately for the socialists, they're going up against Trump, who's going to easily win the next re-election. So, but 2024, that's going to be interesting, right? The 2024 halving in line with the potential socialist getting into office, that is going to be something.
There are certain things that make me bullish on Bitcoin more than others, and our political landscape going into the future and the rise of socialism being an acceptable alternative to existing political architectures is something that blows my mind. I think the bigger questions that people should be asking are, why are we using such outdated political tech? In other words, representative and elected representatives to make decisions when we have global instantaneous communication. I think that there's a lot that goes into that question, and a lot that goes into the implications associated with why we're headed into the socialist direction. I mean, it's for some reason picking up steam, particularly amongst the young people. I know a lot of people will support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's very big on that front. Bernie Sanders created, I would say Bernie Sanders is basically responsible for this movement in the 2016 election process, when he pointed out a lot of the inadequacies and how taxpayer dollars are being spent, particularly lining the pockets of millionaires and billionaires, using American taxpayer dollars to defend oil interests. And that really is only on top of providing money for oil subsidies. We're also paying United States troops to defend these areas, right? So the taxpayer dollar is really going to oil, and all the moving parts associated with defending it, extracting it, and such. So I think this whole socialist thing that was brought on by Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, in such a strong way, is becoming more and more amplified.
I'm with you. I'm with you. What's his name? Bernie Sanders definitely, lit that spark, lit that match for the socialist movement that I believe eventually will win out. Like, unfortunately, but that's the reality of the situation. But on the flip side, Ron Paul in the 2012 election, sparked this movement. If it wasn't for Ron Paul, I wouldn't know about Bitcoin. And it wasn't even because Ron Paul was in Bitcoin. It was because nobody was covering Ron Paul running for president. And the only way to watch him was to watch alternative media. And by watching alternative media and the Ron Paul campaign, that's when a lot of us back in 2012 discovered Bitcoin by watching channels like RT and Finding Max Kaiser. That was my path to Bitcoin. It wasn't in 2012. It was more like 2011 when he was, getting momentum. So, and it was that Ron Paul spark that, a lot of people got very upset at the way Ron Paul was removed from the 2012, final election. And it was, who was it? It was Romney going up against Obama for Obama's reelection, and Ron Paul got shoved aside. And a lot of people didn't like that part, and that's how Trump got in there. On the flip side, a lot of people didn't like how Bernie Sanders got pushed aside to let Hillary run against Trump and have her lose. Now, Bernie Sanders, just like Ron Paul, may be a little too old to try again, but the spark is there. And, a Bernie Sanders, maybe someone even more, crazy than Bernie Sanders, like that guy that's talking about giving everyone $10,000 or whatever, right? Like,
gang.
And this is how these things kind of spark. But yeah, we are definitely going down the rabbit hole here. Unless you have a final quick comment on what I just said, we should probably get back to the price because the show is already going on a little too long.
Yeah, just the quick comment would be, I think the message people should have taken from Bernie Sanders' run was, what is the government doing with our money, and what can we do as people to make sure that that money is used to serve the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Now, that isn't socialism. That's just people putting the government in check. And instead of listening to that, people said, no, let's embrace full-blown socialism. Let's, get a universal minimum wage, et cetera. So like my final comment would just be that I feel like Bernie Sanders' main points were, let's make the taxpayer dollars serve the taxpayer and not millionaires and billionaires running corporations. That's the lesson that we should have gotten from that 2016, the words of Bernie Sanders. But now it's turned into a full-blown movement. So, on to the next thing, though.
Yeah, so really quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. Look, nothing goes up forever. And the Bitcoin dominance chart is about to have a 9 on a weekly, and it already had a 9 on a daily yesterday. So I know I'm looking at it as a line chart because candlesticks just make no sense, but we can look at it in candlesticks, and you can see how we had a 9 top back in July, a 9 bottom, also in July, and now we're back to a 9 top. And in the weekly scale, we're currently on an 8. So yes, as much as it pains me to say, and the weekly chart bottomed beautifully on a 9 here. So it pains me to say, but I think altcoins are going to rally here a little bit, for maybe a week, maybe a couple of days. I mean, they have been beaten up a little too much over the last, month or two. They're due for a little bit of a rally. A lot of the altcoins are bottoming on 9s. Bitcoin is topping on a 9. Now, Bitcoin could pull back here for a week or so, and altcoins can, also pull back in dollar value, but rise against Bitcoin. But this is going to be short-lived. I am expecting Bitcoin Bitcoin dominance to continue to rise. It's just not going to do it immediately. It could. I mean, the last set of trend line is at 98%. And honestly, sooner or later, Bitcoin this setup trend line will go on. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. This setup trend line stopped. My bad. This setup trend line stopped here. It's not going to keep going on because we had another 9. But I would love to see Bitcoin get back there. All right. So that's the Bitcoin dominance. Again, unless you have a very quick comment, I want to finish out Bitcoin with the 4-hour chart real quick, and then a quick word on traditional markets.
Just comment. I agree. I don't necessarily think a 9 sell or a 9 sell on the dominance chart is too indicative of much. I think the halvening should have been more than what it was. If that as an indicator to me that money is ready to enter the altcoin space. Since that didn't happen on such a monumental day, I'm inclined to believe that we're not looking at a serious pullback from Bitcoin dominance at this point.
All right, so the short-term chart, do you trade using the 4-hour chart, Joe? What's your favorite time period to trade?
Well, my favorite's that 15-minute.
That's true. Actually, I do know that. We'll get to the 15-minute. There's not much to say on the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart is pulling back. This is a somewhat critical 12,000 because we are still in this descending channel. The moment we actually break and sustain 12,000, I become very, very bullish. And right now we are in a pullback phase. Can this pullback phase go down to the bottom of the channel in the $7,800 range? I think it's possible, but at the moment, I would slightly favor the odds that we are going to break higher here because the weekly and monthly charts are still bullish. I would not be taking on additional bullish trades right here. The bullish trade to take for me was at 11,000. And by now, my stop losses are getting hit. And my next bullish trade to take would be at 12,000. And then I become very bullish.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I don't trade the 4-hour very much, but I mean, it's basically just a segmented day. And what we're looking at is, some lower lows, but we did seem to bottom out. We haven't created a distinctive higher high, which indicates to me it's very possible that this downward trend is still intact. And so, yeah, a move to the downside of this channel is definitely on the table. But again, with something so volatile, with hope circling the space as heavily as it is, with all the such a bearish sentiment, I think it's possible that we could break to the upside. We've tried 3 times now. It's been a little interesting. I'm not going to dismiss the fact that we've hit 12K and broken down violently each time. 12.5, 12.2, and around 12K. Sat there for a bit yesterday. But I'm willing to entertain the possibility that we're going to not revisit the bottom of the channel. We're going to probably, very likely, I see us moving off of these moving averages, bouncing off of them, breaking the upside end of the channel, and then skyrocketing. I feel like anything's on the table. And with the external variables circulating the space, the fundamentals look like they're poised to support a move to the upside. And once we have that break to the upside, I mean, it's going to be the same how there is no liquidity in certain areas between 6,000 and I think it was 75, then somewhere around 85, somewhere around 92. and we just kept breaking these areas. So it's very possible that we continue to do so.
Yeah, no, thanks for that commentary. So right before we go and take a look at your favorite time frame, the 15-minute, and we are going to take a quick peek at Ethereum and Litecoin. I know you talk about Ripple a lot on your show. With 1,300 viewers watching, I'm going to take the opportunity to shill the upcoming event in Bali, the Financial Summit. Joe, you are thinking about going to this event and joining us here, along with several others. We have added more profiles. Socrates will be joining us with all of Tyler's writings and notes. Hopefully by then, we'll put it all together. Of course, Leah will be there, myself, Willy Woo, Ben Zen, Ugly Old Goat. There's several other prominent and notable traders and a couple of hedge funds I'm talking about to try and represent. We added a bunch of bonuses that you would get included: a 1-year subscription to Van Zen's private group chat, a lifetime subscription to Ugly Old Goats newsletter, all of Lucid Investments webinars, Hyperwave, Celgin, Consensio, everything, all of my webinars. Probably not the options one that I'm teaching next week. I'll think about that one. But at the moment, everything other than the options stuff is there as well. The hotel is amazing, so go ahead and check that out. It's only going to be about 20, 25 people there. You can also submit your trading strategy for a potential of 50% off reduction, which is basically the cost of a vacation because we are at a high-end resort. All right, enough on the Bali Financial Summit. Back over to tonebase.com. I have one workshop coming up in Dallas as part of BitBlock Boom. We'll be updating my calendar. If you want to support, use the affiliates page. If you want the indicator, go to the indicator side, the store, and you guys got the rest. Unconfiscatable will be open for registrations later this month. All right, and Joe will definitely be at Unconfiscatable. You're coming to that one for sure.
I'm very much looking forward to that one, and I'm actually really excited about the prospect of Bali. I really need to see what I could line up to make that happen. I would really love that opportunity. I highly respect some of those analysts never met in person, but Socrates is a new friend and a close friend. I highly respect his opinions. I think it would be such a great time. I'm really looking forward to the prospect of that trip.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. And yeah, he was recently on your show as well.
Yeah, all right. He's going to be a recurring guest Monday, so we look forward to seeing him. He's back in the action.
Real quick on the hourly chart, I just noticed that there is a 9, but we have broken the short-term moving averages. We are sitting here at the lows. While it is a 9, it's not exactly the type of 9 that's screaming buy to me. I would be a little bit cautious on that one. Let's look at 15-minute charts. Yeah, when you get a chance, like Joe, who's he's at home, he's a full-time trader. Wow, there were good opportunities on these. Yesterday was a very crazy day, and we went straight up, topped on a 9, went straight down, bottomed on a 9. So the 15-minute with sequential has been good. Have you been using sequential on the 15-minute, Joe?
Absolutely. I can't stress enough how accurate the 15-minute chart is with the sequential system. I think it's unbelievable. I think I feel like I'm the only one paying attention to it. It's a great trade. Now, you always have to be defensive. An example is look at between 9 and 12, to the right a little bit, between 9 and 12 a.m., it looks like, there was a 9 buy that we had I
didn't even see that one. I totally missed it.
Yeah, a short move to the upside. And obviously you play that, but that's what the one thing that I'd recommend as one who day trades for a living to pay bills, you have to be so careful trading Bitcoin because it is fire. It's such a volatile asset. So always be prepared. You always be prepared to leave a position. Don't get greedy because on the 15-minute you will see massive price moves. And you're gonna want to say, all right, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hit this SPY 9. I'm going to go a low leverage long on this 9 buy, and I'm just going to let it ride. That's absolutely not what you can do. You have to be ready to exit the position quickly. So there are instances where obviously it pans out better. I don't typically go 9 buy all the way to 9 sell and vice versa. I like to get in and out. I like to get in and out clean. The 9 on the 15-minute is an amazing buying and selling opportunity.
Yeah, on the flip side, however, once this 9 did not lead straight up like this last one, like this one, like buying off of this 9, it pretty much got you straight up. You might have gotten stopped out here, which would have been unfortunate, but it was certainly a profitable trade that went straight up. But on this time around, it was very short-lived. And now, if you are the kind of person that trades sequential for the countdown phase, you're still short the asset looking for the sequential 13 to complete what this 9 started to the downside.
Yeah, so the thing here that I'm looking at is I would take a look at that 9. I would enter. I would, again, be looking for a 1 to 4 candle pullback always. And when I'm trading, I'm babysitting my trades. I'm watching 3 different Bitcoin charts. You know, it sounds excessive, but it's like when you're babysitting a trade and you're trading for a living, you really have to pay close attention to every moving part that you possibly can. So on an example of that 9 buy, it would be very difficult to say, 2020 hindsight, but you always have to be ready to exit a position. And I strongly encourage people to, if you're trading on the 15-minute chart with the 9, to go into it with a plan. Don't go into it with the plan for a moon-like trade with high leverage. Go into it with the plan to get out at a reasonable price. We have, in this particular case, a setup trend line. It wasn't quite met. So, you have to be even more conservative than that at times. The second you started to see that 2 turn into, a very neutral-like candle, that would start to be a big red flag to me. And selling at that 1 would have broken even, right? So the second we started breaking that 1, getting below the body of the candle, especially below the wick, that's when you need to start reassessing your position. Of course, you exit and, you see a steep move to the downside, a small pop to the upside, and then continued downside action. It would have been a great exit. So when you're trading sequential on a 15-minute chart, don't I can't stress this enough. Do not be greedy. Be okay with taking a $100 profit, even if it's $100. Be okay with taking $1,000 profit. If you're looking for that $10,000, $20,000 trade, you're going to hit it here and there, but it's going to cause you a lot of grief if those are the kinds of gems you're looking for. They're going to be much harder to find.
Yeah, no, very well said. Quick look at Ethereum, and this is one of those, shit coins that is potentially bottoming on a 9, but this is not the kind of candle I'm rushing and buying. Like, as much as I trust sequential, I would rather see a candle like this with the green arrow, or a candle like this with the green arrow, not the other one. And this is actually kind of light. Hold on, let me.
Yeah, I agree with you. This 9 buy is not a rush to buy, and I really don't like to touch garbage, because say I'm trading Bitcoin at the end of the day, and say you're spot trading, right? You're gonna, if you make a bad spot trade, you still have your Bitcoin. If you make a bad, and we're obviously long Bitcoin, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now. But when you lose on something that you don't believe in, it really throws you off your game. So I strongly encourage people to worry less about trading altcoins, but that's my personal opinion. People are going to do what they're going to do. But yeah, here's the daily.
Right. So the reason why I was kind of becoming bullish on Ethereum earlier this week was because of this 913, 9 double 13 actually, combo and aggressive, with a 9 daily inside the weekly 9. That was 2 days ago. The daily chart is now saying this thing is weaker than it was before. And right now, we have a red 2 going below a red 1, going below the 9 on the daily. And this is not promising at all. This is looking like it's going to continue to go down. You're going to have another green arrow coming up in like maybe 3 to 5 days with a daily 13 coming off the prior 9. But now you're in a new countdown phase. So now,
Yeah.
while I was bullish on Ethereum versus Bitcoin 2 days ago, I no longer am because this thing is now continuing to go down. So that's not good for Ethereum. I mean, as much as I want to be, you know, neutral analyst by looking at charts and TA. I mean, I like it when my TA is saying bearish, and I think the asset is bearish. Again, like when your fundamentals are in line with your technicals, you have a lot of confidence in your trade. This is why I've been so confident about the S&P 500 bullish trade. This is why I was confident about the Bitcoin bullish trade in 2016 and 2017, because my technicals were in line with fundamentals. This is why I was so confident about the Bitcoin bearish trade in 2018, because my fundamentals of being bearish were in line with the technicals of being bearish. Now, I don't have this kind of confidence today. I'm fundamentally not convinced that Bitcoin is bullish, intermediate term, but technically it's bullish. Gold, same thing. I am technically in line with gold being bullish, but not fundamentally. And this is where now you can debate me on fundamentals all you like. It's a little harder to debate me on technicals because technicals, I mean, they're both kind of subjective, but I mean, I trust my technicals. I've made a lot of money with trading with technicals, but I am confident when my technicals are in line with my fundamentals. And this is why, I've been so confident in the stock market, because I'm not ready to be a fundamental or a technical bear in the stock market. Now, the stock market goes technically bearish every now and then, right? I mean, obviously the stock market was bearish technically all throughout this, but I was never fundamentally bearish the stock market, which is why I continued to look for a good buying opportunity to announce on this channel. Same thing here. I'm still fundamentally bullish on the stock market, and I think there was a good opportunity to buy this thing, even though it was certainly scary. Actually, I didn't mean to go to the daily chart on here. I meant to go to the daily chart. I meant to go here. So would have been nice to get this down to a daily 9. It looks like we're not going to get the daily 9 because tomorrow there'll be a price flip. But I'm fundamentally bullish the stock market, and I love it when it becomes technically bullish. And until I am fundamentally bullish on Bitcoin intermediate term, obviously I'm fundamentally bullish on Bitcoin long term, but I wouldn't have wasted the last 5 years of my life, right? Yeah. I would have found something else to do. But this intermediate term, I mean, like the Google trends prove it, that like there's no FOMO. There just isn't. It's hard for me to explain. It might be some institutional buying. It might be some rich families. It's probably a lot to do with the shitcoin exodus. But those things alone are not enough for me to be midterm Bitcoin fully bullish, even if the technical picture, if I was like, if my job was to trade Bitcoin, I would be taking on more bullish trades than bearish trades because that's what the charts say. Same thing with gold. But like, it's just not in line with my fundamental view of it. My fundamental view can be wrong. You can disagree. And this is where the Ethereum and the Litecoin and the BCAS charts, I love them because they're technically bearish and I'm fundamentally bearish on those charts. So that's why this is the trade that I love. But because I know the space is so irrational, it's just too dangerous to make with any type of leverage. If you're going to do it without leverage, absolutely go for it.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. I'm actually, after getting, chopped up a little bit, I'm kind of hanging out. I'm going little to no leverage trades. I do believe that I'm willing to change my mind quickly. I'll happily lose a couple $100 if we break 12K, break 12.5, and we start violently moving to the upside. I'll market buy a leverage position and I'll let it ride. I have no problem with that. But again, the big question: where is the money coming from? And if it is just the death of altcoins, altcoin money moving into Bitcoin, 2018 tax money, end of year losses that people were sitting on in cash and waiting to enter the space again. If that's all the money, it was then an isolated ecosystem, and we're not looking at 2017 type activity all over again. And the Google trends are there to prove it. I don't have any reason to believe that that information is incorrect in any way.
Yeah, so real quick, we have Ethereum. It's on a 9 weekly, but the daily now looks terrible. It's kind of in this giant middle zone with zero support until you get to a horrible level of less than 1% of a Bitcoin. Litecoin, I think, is in the biggest trouble of them all, which is totally in line with my fundamental picture because Litecoin has just gone through a halving, which I think is very bearish for Litecoin. Now, Bcash is going to go through its halving in April, and that's when I think there'll be a mass exodus out of Bcash into Bitcoin, whatever is left over. I mean, you can go and collect your 2% of Bitcoin's value for every Bcash that you have. And it had a 9, it had a 13, nice, marking a nice bottom for like a 2-year low, actually the all-time low. Oh, wow. I just realized this was Bcash all-time low against Bitcoin just 3 weeks ago, rallied a little bit, hit a 9, absolutely no strength. And now we are on a red 2 going below a red 1, following a 9, entering the countdown phase. And this could be, well, actually, it's not going to be the lowest weekly close, but it could be next
very well.
So Bcash is in serious trouble here to go lower against Bitcoin, probably lower in US dollar terms too. Litecoin has this ridiculous double bottom that, if broken, will basically probably destroy that coin from a price perspective. And I don't really want to pull up Ripple, but if we look at the yearly trend of Bitcoin, Ripple is the one here at the bottom that's lost 72% against Bitcoin for the year. And Bitcoin is up 200% against the US dollar. And all of these coins, what am I missing from the top 10? Maybe the Binance coin?
Maybe Binance.
Has Binance been around for 2 years?
No, yeah, maybe now by now it has been, but yeah, Binance against BTC is and Binance against the US dollar are two very different charts.
Right. So Binance is still kicking there. You know, it's Binance is up 70% against Bitcoin in the last 2 years, but that's only because it's the youngest one of them all, right? Ripple is the oldest one of them all, and it's down the most, right? So like the longer these things are in existence, the worse it is for them. Maybe Litecoin's older than Ripple. It's yeah, Litecoin is older than Ripple actually.
Yeah, Ripplers will argue that point, but yeah, I think Ripple is a complete sucker's bet. Anything to do with the Ripple ecosystem that adds layers on top of its success are all pretty much they're negligible to me. Again, in order for I mean, I could hit this real quick. You know, the economics of XRapid functioning from person trying to send money to person 2 through bank 1 to bank 2 through exchange to 1 to exchange 2 is going to cause all kinds of liquidity issues. And there's no way that that's going to function, especially when you have money moving single directionally, right? In the United States, let's say I'm from California, right? We have a lot of Mexicans work in the farms and they send money back home. And I'm sure like out here in New York, there's probably all kinds of similar stuff. You know, you have people sending money, making money in the United States and sending it out of the United States to their families. So this is going to have terrible implications on the liquidity stateside relative to other parts of the world. I just don't see money moving back and forth on through XRapid. I think it's going to be unidirectionally, and I think it's going to be pretty terrible. I think it's going to be like a fiasco. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how that plays out. Now, obviously, I think Ripple's complete garbage. I'll spend time talking about that, but and I'm particularly glad to see Ripple performing so poorly against Bitcoin, and like this what I'm seeing here also tells me a lot about the psychology in the market space, and that's something that I pay close attention to. The psychology is getting very weak for a lot of these assets, the altcoins. So as long as psychology continues to get weaker and people have more fear, uncertainty, and doubt regarding these assets when they see something like Bitcoin rising violently, I think it's really going to cause a lot of these altcoins to die. And we have Ripple in court. We need to see how that all plays out. But I'm really excited to see Bitcoin dominance continue to rise, and I'm really curious to see what happens if Bitcoin is in a double bubble. What the downside is going to look like for the wider market space.
All right, thanks for that, Joe. I don't really have time to get into stocks, so we'll have to save that for another show. Maybe I'll run through them like unreasonably quick. Just a couple of them, just the ones we've been keeping an eye on. So this was a nice 9 sell at the high. I would not be short this anymore because it looks like the stock market is rallying. And so I at this point, I'd rather be looking at stocks coming off 9 buys than looking for stocks that are coming off 9 sells. There's always stock or something like this. I would be very interested in a stock. Well, kind of hindsight now, but earlier today, you had a green 3 going above consolidation at the high, a bit of an ascending triangle. So something like this, I love buying the all-time high breakout. I mean, that's it right here. Like, and people, this is the trade that most people don't understand. This is the trade most people are scared of. How in the world can you buy this candle here breaking out above a stock that has gone up forever? Well, that's because this is what it's going to do right after that. Now, granted, there's earnings. I wouldn't have held it through earnings, but the concept is the same. This is where I want to buy it. I want to buy the breakout of a double top, especially when the double top came on 9s, and we're breaking this on like a 3, looking for that set 9. So same thing here. The breakout came a little early, but I'm okay. I'm in a new countdown phase, so I'm good. Titan, this thing collapsed 25%. Of course, you have to trade on the Indian markets, and now we have a 9. So again, this is what I would be looking for as I'm looking at a market rebounding. So I would look for things like that. I think Lyft had something interesting. Yep, Lyft, there it is, right? So again, earnings had a lot to do with this, but tops on a 9, bottoms on a 9. The market is rebounding, going strong. This is where you want to be a buyer right now. And another one I've been eyeing, JMIA, where I really wanted to see some strength here. It's a recent IPO, very hyped up stock, fell from $50 all the way down to 13, and I would love to pick this up on the cheap. Maybe we have to watch the weekly chart and wait a little bit longer. But it's there's different types of trading, right? You can buy breakdowns, you can sell breakdowns, or you can try to find some of these beaten up stocks after IPOs in order to pick them up. Another example of a 9 right here at the low in Exxon. Market is rising, beautiful reversal right off that 9. Wasn't very easy to trade because of the low yesterday, but it really depends on your risk tolerance and where you set your stop losses. I just want to look at Amazon real quick. Yep, there it is. Another 9 at the low yesterday on Amazon. Beautiful pickup there. And that's why I like sequential. And when it doesn't work, you take your loss. You take the stop loss, right? Not every trade is going to be successful, right? If you shorted this 9 and you were making money, you're not going to hold the short forever. My stop loss would already be hit. I would be taking that profit. That's how I used to like to trade. Again, Netflix. I was very bearish Netflix upon the break of this low. What happens on a candle like this? You take the loss. You take the little tiny loss, because when you bought it off of this 9, you had a really nice gain. So taking a little bit of a loss here is like maybe giving up 5 to 10% of your gains on the prior trade. And that's how you continuously grow your accounts over time. I think Facebook was another one with a 9 there it was yesterday. And buying off this 9, you should already be putting in a break-even stop into tomorrow to make sure these trades do not cost you any money. NVIDIA had a 9 today. Again, rising stock market. If the tide is going up, you want to find good opportunities to go with the market. They can be breakouts. They could be bottoms. They should not be stuff in the middle. Either you're going to try to catch a falling knife along with the market, or you buy strength, buy the breakout. I like both of those strategies because they both have structure. They're not random. All right, Joe, final thoughts on trading. I'll let you go. Your first time on the show. We definitely went long, but looks like our live viewers really enjoyed it. Closing out with 1,200 viewers still.
Yeah, just one closing thought is, you know, as you're running quickly through these stocks, I would encourage viewers to take a look at the moving averages and how we respond to these moving averages off the 9 cells. That's a great indicator to tell you how strong we are moving into that kind of price action. So, you know, just be mindful of moving averages. I do strongly believe in them. They're kind of one of my bread and butter indicators. But yeah, I mean, as far as the stock market, yeah, it looks like we have a lot of earnings coming up, and that's your thing. And you know, on top of that, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, Joe, thank you for coming on the show. Once again, check out tonebase.com. These are the prior webinars, which are now available on demand. The options webinar is coming up in a couple of weeks after I get back from Toronto and Dallas conferences. There will be an in-person workshop in Dallas. You can also check out the conferences. Unconfiscatable is going to open registration later this month. I'm already in touch with almost every speaker is coming back. Obviously, Tyler will not be there, unfortunately, but most of the other speakers are coming back. And check out Bali if you want to meet lots of cool traders and bounce ideas as I still don't have an agenda for the event. It really depends on who's coming. If a lot of people are coming to learn, that will be the agenda. If every person that shows up is already a seasoned trader, we can have a great time just discussing trading strategies and hanging out and talking shop. Check out the website, thefinancialsummit.com. More pictures of notable attendees is going to be posted very, very soon. All right, guys, on this note, I'm going to call it a day. Joe, thanks for joining me. You can find Joe doing videos of Trader Stake on Block TV and where they do lots of other crypto content as well. All right, great show. Definitely longer than expected. I will be back tonight for the Bitcoin law review. That will be in about 3 hours from now. That's what I'm doing the rest of my days, putting together an agenda for the Bitcoin law review, another great podcast. And thank you so much for joining us. And I will see you all on the next one. Bye, guys.